Donald Trump has never been subtle about how he views America's traditional allies. Over and over again, he has made his feelings unmistakably clear, particularly when it comes to NATO and long-standing partnerships in Europe. His rhetoric has consistently framed alliances not as shared commitments rooted in history, sacrifice, and mutual defense, but as bad business deals where the United States is being cheated. When Trump declares that NATO has treated America very unfairly, that the US never asked for anything and never got anything, he reveals a worldview that reduces global security to a transactional balance sheet. This attitude has consequences, and increasingly, the world is responding in kind. In recent years, those consequences have become impossible to ignore. Trump's public disparagement of allies has eroded trust, strained diplomatic relationships, and created a perception that the United States no longer values the very alliances that helped define global stability after World War II. When you repeatedly insult partners who have stood beside your country through wars, terror attacks, and decades of geopolitical tension, it should not come as a surprise when those partners stop extending warmth or deference. You reap what you sow, and Trump is now facing the harvest. That reality was symbolically on display when Trump arrived in Davos, Switzerland, for the World Economic Forum. Traditionally, the arrival of a U.S. president at such a gathering is met with diplomatic enthusiasm, handshakes, and visible engagement from world leaders. Instead, Trump was met with something far more telling: silence. No welcoming committee. No rush of allies eager to be seen at his side, just emptiness. The absence spoke louder than any protest ever could. It was a quiet but unmistakable message from the international community that respect is a two-way street, and it cannot survive sustained contempt. This moment did not happen in isolation. It was the culmination of years of rhetoric in which Trump treated America's allies as burdens rather than partners. NATO, in particular, has been a frequent target. Yet this framing ignores the basic historical reality of what NATO is and why it exists. NATO is often described accurately as the most successful military alliance in human history. Its longevity alone tells the story. While most collective defense alliances collapse within a decade or two, NATO has endured for over 70 years. That kind of endurance is not accidental. It exists because the alliance has repeatedly proven its value to all members, including the United States. European leaders have not been silent in response to Trump's claims. On multiple occasions, they have pushed back publicly against the idea that America stands alone in defending Europe, or that European nations are free riders hiding behind U.S. military power. One prominent European leader put it plainly in a message addressed directly to Trump, stating that America does not have and will not find a better ally than Europe. He emphasized that European countries collectively spend many times more on defense than Russia, and amounts comparable to China, making clear that this investment is not charity, but a shared commitment to transatlantic security. These statements are not empty words. They are backed by history, sacrifice, and blood. When the United States was attacked on September 11, 2001, NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time in its history, declaring that an attack on one member was an attack on all. European allies did not hesitate. They joined the United States in Afghanistan, sending their soldiers into harm's way in support of American security. This fact alone directly contradicts Trump's repeated implication that America would stand alone if it were attacked. That contradiction was laid bare in a particularly striking moment when Trump appeared on stage with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. In front of a global audience, Rutte directly addressed Trump's doubts about whether European allies would come to America's defense. Rutte did not hedge his words. He stated unequivocally that they would, and that they already had. He reminded Trump that in Afghanistan, for every 2 American soldiers who lost their lives, 1 soldier from another NATO country also paid the ultimate price. Those soldiers came from the Netherlands, Denmark, and many other allied nations. They never came home to their families, not because they were defending Europe, but because they were standing with the United States. As Rutte spoke, Trump sat silently. There was no rebuttal, no counterargument, no familiar bravado. The facts left no room for spin. This was not a matter of opinion or interpretation. It was history. It was a sacrifice. It was proof that NATO is not a one-way arrangement, but a living alliance built on shared risk and shared loss. This moment highlighted a deeper problem with Trump's approach to foreign policy. While it is reasonable to argue that NATO members should meet agreed-upon defense spending targets, Trump's fixation on dollars ignores the broader concept of value. Alliances are not simple transactions where money goes in and protection comes out. They are long-term investments in stability, influence, and collective strength. They generate returns that cannot always be measured in immediate financial terms. Trump's worldview, however, seems incapable of recognizing anything that does not appear as a direct monetary gain. Understanding alliances requires an appreciation of history, and that appreciation usually comes from reading, listening, and learning. It requires an awareness of how past decisions shape present realities. Trump has repeatedly demonstrated a lack of interest in this kind of engagement. Instead, he approaches global politics as if it were a real estate negotiation, where every relationship must produce a visible profit or be discarded as a failure. In doing so, he dismisses concepts like shared sacrifice, trust built over decades, and the strategic advantage of having reliable partners across the globe. NATO, like any institution, is not without flaws. It has internal disagreements, uneven burdens, and ongoing debates about modernization and responsibility. But dismissing it as a bad deal for the United States is not only inaccurate, it is dangerous. NATO has supported the US not just in Afghanistan, but in intelligence sharing, counterterrorism efforts, and crisis response following events like 9/11. These contributions often happen quietly, behind the scenes, and without fanfare, which may be why they fail to register in Trump's accounting. By continually attacking allies and questioning their loyalty, Trump is doing more than bruising egos. He is weakening the network of relationships that amplify American power. The United States does not project influence alone. Its strength has always been multiplied by alliances that extend its reach, legitimacy, and strategic depth. Undermining those alliances does not make America stronger or more independent. It makes it more isolated. That isolation carries real consequences, including economic ones. Diplomatic relationships are closely tied to trade, investment, and market stability. When allies lose confidence in American leadership, cooperation falters. Trade disputes become more likely. Supply chains become less reliable. Economic retaliation becomes a viable option. The damage does not stop at the borders of foreign capitals. It comes home, affecting American workers, farmers, and consumers. We have already seen glimpses of this dynamic in recent years. Trade tensions and retaliatory tariffs have hurt American industries, including agriculture, in ways that ripple through local economies. The erosion of alliances magnifies these risks. When countries no longer see the United States as a dependable partner, they look elsewhere. They build new relationships, forge new agreements, and gradually reduce their reliance on American leadership. Trump's inability or unwillingness to appreciate allies is not just a diplomatic flaw, it is a strategic failure. Alliances are not acts of charity, they are force multipliers. They deter adversaries, stabilize regions, and reduce the likelihood that the United States will ever have to fight alone. By treating them as burdens rather than assets, Trump is diminishing one of America's greatest advantages on the world stage. The irony is that the very strength Trump claims to champion is the strength he is undermining. American power has never been solely about military might or economic size. It has also been about credibility, leadership, and the trust of those willing to stand alongside it. When that trust erodes, power follows. The message from America's allies has been remarkably consistent. Appreciate your partners. Recognize the sacrifices they have made. Understand that solidarity is not measured solely in dollars. The world has shown again and again that it is willing to stand with the United States. The question now is whether American leadership is willing to stand with them in return. If not, the silence that greeted Trump in Davos may become the new normal. And silence in diplomacy is rarely neutral. It is often the sound of doors quietly closing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.